What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and since we are essentially exactly halfway through the year, I thought it would be kind of a fun exercise this week to give you my top 5 favorite games I've played so far this year. So without further ado, let's rock. All right, a quick note about this video. So I'm gonna have 6 games I want to talk about. In my top 5, I do have an honorable mention. And actually, I've done either a full review or a first impressions video for each of these games. So these are gonna be kind of bite-sized discussions about each one of these games. I didn't want to make this video an hour long. So this is gonna be a pretty quick discussion about each one of these games in my top 5. If you want a deeper dive, I think most of these videos are like 20-25 minutes. So if you want a deeper dive into each one of these games, definitely check out those links in the video description. So I do want to have at least one honorable mention in this list, and the only reason it's an honorable mention and not in my actual top 5 is the fact that if you watched my video last week, you know that Death Stranding 2 has been a fantastic game so far. I think like 30 hours into it last week when I put out my first impressions video. I'm about another 20 hours into it. I'm a little bit further in the story than I was at that point last week. I've definitely played a lot more story in proportion to how much I've played so far than I did last week when I put out that video. This game is amazing. It's everything that I wanted it to be. It's tracking to be my number 3 so far, but since I haven't beaten it, I just threw it in an honorable mention. I've been having so much fun with this game. I got obsessed with just kind of picking up random packages and delivering them and building roads and building the monorails and just kind of traveling from place to place and getting 5 stars. I literally have 5 stars on every location except for the one that I just unlocked. So I've been really obsessed with this game. It's fantastic. There's so many things that I feel like I'm just scratching the surface with right now. I'm almost 60 hours into this game at this point. So I've been really enjoying it, but I haven't beaten it yet, so I didn't want to put it officially on my top 5 yet, but it's a fantastic game. If you want to hear more, check out my video from last week. All right, so on to my official top 5. And it breaks my heart a little bit to put this at number 5 because if I remember correctly, I think Elden Ring Nightreign was my most anticipated game going into the year. But this game and my number 4, unfortunately, are both kind of in this category of they were really fun when I was playing them, but then I set them aside to play something else, and I haven't had any desire to circle back to them. I do think that Elden Ring Nightreign is a good game. Obviously, I've played I think a little over 20 games that came out in 2025 already, and this is my top 5. So I obviously think it's a good game. I think it's a cool way to kind of re-experience Elden Ring. Obviously, you're not getting the depth of that game in this type of game, and it works a lot better than I thought it was going to work. Obviously, it dumbs down a lot of stuff, but I think it's a fun game, especially if you've played the original game and are like me and you've run it back a couple of times and you've played the DLC, and it's just another way or another excuse to kind of just live in this world for a little bit longer. It's fun. I really enjoyed it. It just, again, once you experience it for a while, I'm kind of done with this game. I might play it occasionally here and there, but for the most part, I think I'm kind of done with this game. And the same can be said for my number 4, Doom: The Dark Ages. I'm surprised that this game even made my top 5, to be honest with you. I talked about this before. I'm not against these games. I do like first-person shooters. I grew up on Wolfenstein 3D. It was if I remember correctly, it might have been my first-person shooter, and that's obviously very reminiscent of the original Doom game. So I like these games. It's just, I've shared this story before, so I'll make this brief. But the 2016 game gave me really bad motion sickness, and so I couldn't play it for very long, and so I gave it like 10-ish hours around there, and I just like, I can't play this game anymore. And I liked what I played when it wasn't making me sick, and then I of course just passed on Doom Eternal because of that very reason. But since Doom: The Dark Ages was day 1 Game Pass, I was like, well, the bar is so low now because I don't actually have to pay for the game, that I just decided to give it a shot. Luckily, it didn't make me sick, and I dug this game. It was what I thought it was going to be. Super gory, a ton of different guns, which I appreciated. There's a ton of different enemies. I like that Most of this game is linear, as you would expect. It does have a little bit of a story, which I didn't really connect with the story, but I was surprised it even had a story. From what I understand, again, I didn't play the 2016 game enough to really get into it, and I didn't play Doom Eternal at all. So from what I understand, the fact that it had like an actual story is kind of new to the franchise. So I definitely appreciate that, even though again, I didn't really connect with any of the characters. I do like that it had some, it's not open world by any means, but there was definitely some areas that were much more open than others, and there was a lot of collectibles that you could find. The game just kind of kicks ass. I liked the soundtrack. I'm not a huge heavy metal guy. I will say that I expected the music to be better. It's not bad by any means, and again, maybe it's just my bias because that's not my favorite genre of music or anything, but it did kind of get samey towards the end. It was great. It added definitely a lot of personality to the game, as you would expect, but it just kind of blended in the background for me after a while. So like Elden Ring, Nightreign, it's a game that once I was kind of done with it, once I beat it, I was not super excited to kind of go back and re-experience it again. So number 3 is kind of where I make the difference between Elden Ring, Nightreign, and Doom the Dark Ages to games that I really, really enjoyed. And my number 3 is Split Fiction. So this is the new Hazelight game, the co-op game where one person buys it and you can play it with another person without them having to buy it. I really liked A Way Out, and of course my wife and I loved It Takes Two, and we were very excited for this game, and it did not disappoint. I'm a huge sci-fi and fantasy guy, so the concept of this game, having these two unpublished writers get dropped into each of their stories, just kind of gave the developers excuses to make really cool levels. And I dug a lot of the references to sci-fi and fantasy stuff that I've played and watched and read, so I definitely appreciated all of that. Kind of like Doom the Dark Ages, but way better. I didn't connect with this story as much as I expected to, at least right away. It definitely got better as the game went on. I just didn't connect with Zoe or Mio that much at the beginning of the game, but once the game got going, I definitely connected way more than I did with Doom the Dark Ages. I don't want anybody to get that twisted. The game just plays and looks great, and honestly, I just have an absolute blast playing these types of games with my wife. I don't know if this is a compliment or not, but I don't know if there's a type of game that makes me laugh so hard that I literally fart more than these games. Like, I have such a great time playing these games with my wife. And honestly, if it wasn't for number 2 or number 1, this would be an easy number 1 for me so far. It was a great game. It just, these other 2 games were fantastic. So the next game I want to talk about is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And I thought I was going to like this game. We saw this game for the first time a while back, and then we got a deep dive at the Xbox Developer Direct. I was immediately sold on this game. I mean, it certainly didn't hurt that it was day 1 Game Pass, so I wasn't gonna have to pay for it like Doom the Dark Ages, which I think was also showed off at that same showcase. I just vibed with this game. It was a small studio that was just making this passion project. It had Charlie Cox, Andy Serkis. It just had a lot going for it that I really wanted to root for this game. Turn-based combat is not necessarily my favorite genre, but I play the games occasionally, so I'm not against it. But what I love, and this is kind of a theme if you watch this channel for a while, I want to give the benefit of the doubt to developers and to games, that it was clear that they knew exactly what they wanted to make, and they kind of just made that game. Whether or not it was going to be successful or not, obviously you want it to be successful, but it's like they didn't care so much about everything else that was going on in gaming, and they didn't throw in a bunch of bullshit into this game just to kind of make it a little bit more popular. They made exactly the game they wanted to make. This game has so much personality to it. It's so deep with the turn-based combat, which I appreciate, but it looks amazing. The story is heartbreaking, but really engaging. The characters are really fun. The game looks amazing. It's just everything I wanted from this game. I'm not sure I've played a game in a while that had more personality than this game does. But unfortunately, it just so happens that Expedition 33 came out in a year that also had Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And to be honest with you, Expedition 33 might be my number one most years if it hadn't come out on the same year as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which, to be honest with you, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 might be one of my favorite games of all time. I know that's very knee-jerk because we just played it a few months ago, but man, I think it might be one of those games where I don't know if it would necessarily be my pick, but it would definitely be in the discussion. If you told me I could only play one game for the rest of my life, what game would it be? It would have to be a game like this. Maybe it ends up being Witcher 3 if you give me all the DLCs, but it would definitely be in the conversation because there's so much to do in this game. I played this game for almost 200 hours and I feel like there's still some mechanics that I barely scratched the surface. I mean, hell, kind of like I've been vibing with Death Stranding 2 lately. I would just jump on my horse and just ride around and just kind of look around and just like run into random NPCs along the way. Not necessarily physically run into them with my horse, but just kind of like see what they were up to and kind of just vibe with the game. It's amazing. The combat is a lot more streamlined than it was in the first game, which I appreciated. I did play the first game when it launched. I didn't beat it just because it was so clunky at first and I couldn't really get into it. But I'm really glad that I gave the second one a chance because the story is fantastic. The combat, again, is a lot more streamlined. And I eventually, once I got a few upgrades, I eventually felt like I was kind of a badass. I definitely got into the combat way more in this game. And there's just, again, so much to do. The game looks amazing and it never crashed for me. It never clipped. I never had any issues whatsoever. It's just a game like this with a smaller studio, much like Expedition 33, it's so impressive that, again, they did something very similar, which is this game is not gonna be for everybody, but it definitely was for me. And they made the exact game that they wanted to make, like Expedition 33, and it was successful, and I couldn't be happier for them. This is a fantastic game, and I can't imagine that it's not going to be my number one at the end of the year when I make a similar video. But as always, those are just my thoughts. That's just my top 5 favorite video games of 2025 so far. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Of course, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button, as the kids say. If you especially enjoyed it, definitely consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. That way you're notified every time I post another video. I try to post weekly gaming related videos, which is obviously something that you're into if you've made it this far in the video. So definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?